Hi there. Today, I've had the pleasure of interviewing David Shotwell. David and I go back a whole lot of years when we worked together in a big organization. And David and I both became realtors in our subsequent kind of next iteration. David's active in the Washington, D.C. area and very active in the D.C. area. And I've been following David all these years on social media. And so I knew when it was time to talk with somebody who knows about getting a second home, knows about the desire for some clients to relocate possibly to a more quiet area, in his case, coastal Delaware, that he was really a wonderful person to talk to. So you're going to hear from the experience of a 14-year realtor in Washington, D.C., who's extremely well connected. And here, there are three things about David that I know you're going to find that is really, really attractive in a professional. Is he has energy. He has energy when he talks about what he's passionate about. Two, he has experience. Three, he listens, and he listens really, really well. That's what we want. We want all those qualities in any professional, but particularly in a decision-making time of when you want a second home or possibly relo out of an urban area to a more rural area. These are the kind of people that we want to hear to. So listen to David today, and I know you'll really enjoy it. And don't hesitate to, press subscribe and recommend the episode to your friends and family. Thank you so much. Well, welcome today to David Shotwell from Compass Realty in Washington, D.C. And I've known David for many, many years, and we're going to have a blast talking with him today because David has unbelievable energy for the things that he is passionate about. So, David, welcome. It's so good to see you.
Thanks so much, Mary. I'm so happy to be here with you.
Oh, fun. This is so fun. So, David, tell us, what is life like in D.C. now, in the D.C. area? Because I think you serve Maryland and Virginia as well.
I do, yes. I'm licensed in Washington, D.C., Virginia, Maryland, and also Delaware, which we can talk about.
Of course, yes.
Most of my business is in D.C. proper. I do some business in the close-in suburbs of Northern Virginia and what we call suburban Maryland.
Very good. And you've been at this for a while, right?
Yeah, I started selling real estate full-time in 2012.
2012. So 14 years ago.
14,
almost
a little over
14?
14 years. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a lot. And so you've seen the big up. Are you seeing kind of a down? I know you're very busy now, but I was kind of hearing for a while things were like moderating a little bit.
Yeah, so the market in DC has been a bit strange, as you can imagine. Last year there was a lot going on in the city, so we had the effects of Doge, and then the government shutdown last fall, and so all of those things obviously affect people's either need to sell or desire to buy, and so there were a lot of dynamics at play last year. In fact, I was telling a lot of my seller clients last fall that if they didn't need to, I would recommend waiting until this year, just because there was so much uncertainty in the market, and just in the city last fall in particular. And so I had a lot of sellers that actually did that. They listened to my advice, and we've since listed their properties this spring to sell, and they're all under contract and all doing well. So
that's the sign of a really strong agent. In my opinion, an agent that says, hey, look, you don't have to reinvest your money right now. You don't have to sell right now. Let's take a little break and see where this horizon is going to be. Because in the end, you're responsible for getting them the best price and terms that they can have on their investment or on their property.
Absolutely. And I have a philosophy, and I think a lot of real estate agents have this as well, but, I never want to do something that's in my best interest. It's always in the client's best interest. And so everything that I would recommend to them, everything that I would suggest they do perhaps to their property to get it ready to sell or to not sell again at a particular time, it's all based on what I think is best for them. And then it's a conversation. We talk about, their desires and wants and needs and timing and all of those things. And I always say, if if you need to sell now, we can make it happen, and we'll do exactly what we need to do.
Yeah. Good. Excellent. And so now you have a lot of activity, right? My sense is that the market is quite dynamic. Are you seeing price changes, or is it just kind of staying steady?
Yeah, it's a bit of a tale of two markets in DC and the
Mm.
greater DC area.
Hmm.
So single family homes continue to sell really well. It's a bit of a hangover from the COVID era where everyone was kind of moving into something larger. They wanted a yard. And so single family homes continue to do really well in this market. The condo market has been a little more challenging because that's typically either first-time home buyers and in some ways downsizers. So
Hmm.
empty nesters that had a
Hmm.
big family home, maybe out in the suburbs, and they want more of the city life. And so they sell the big home in the suburbs and they move downtown. And
Hmm.
so some of that has been delayed as well. But I have to say, my experience selling condos, because I do a lot of condos. I
Yeah.
work and
Right.
live in downtown DC,
Yeah. It's a nature.
is that if they're positioned right, if they show well, if you do all the hard work up front, which is um either repainting or some touch up or little things like that, staging it to sell, or if you're going to live there while we sell it, I go in and kind of do a consultation and say, let's move this piece of furniture over
Right.
here. Let's put this one in storage. So I always say all the hard work of selling is up front before you
Right.
ever list the property for sale.
Hmm.
So if we do all of those things and kind of get that right, and then obviously nail pricing, because that's got to be
Hmm.
based on, the comps and the current market conditions. When you do all of those things correctly and well, then condos are selling as well. And so that's been
Good.
my experience.
Good. Are you seeing any fallout from like the Florida experience of the construction questions versus, the special assessments? What is the viability of my building? Do you see much of that at all in DC?
It's definitely come up. So obviously, since the tragedy in Florida with the collapse of the condo building, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac have tightened their scrutiny of condo
Hmm.
buildings, and so there is an added level of review that they're doing. And Fannie and Freddie are the underwriters of all conventional mortgages, almost all conventional mortgages, and so um, I've definitely seen that. I've definitely had a couple of properties that were considered to be non-warrantable, which means Fannie and Freddie wouldn't underwrite the building. And then
Hmm.
you run into all kinds of challenges about trying to find financing, and you have to find a lender that's willing to do it. And typically the interest rate is much higher in those
Hmm.
situations. And
Hmm.
so I'm always counseling my clients that own condos. It may be bemoaning a higher condo fee or a special assessment that they
Right.
have been issued, that it's really in their best interest in the health of that building
Hmm.
and the ability to be able to sell the units in that building going forward.
When you're ready. That's right. Excellent. I just, all of this sounds like so reasonable to me. And my sense too is it builds a lot of trust. It builds a
Right.
lot of trust in your counsel. Exactly. So you're a man who lives in two places. And I've always known this about you, that you have had a love with Delaware and coastal
Yes.
Delaware.
Yes.
And for people who aren't familiar with the area, I think I said, well, how many hours does it take to drive out to Rehoboth from DC?
Well,
It
it depends.
depends. Depends.
Depends on when you're going. So I
Exactly.
always try to go in an off time,
Yeah, like, that's
which if
right.
that's the case, you
Two
can do
o'clock
the drive.
Thursday AM, right?
Right, exactly. So, if you're going in an off time, you can typically do the drive in about 2.5 hours.
Yeah,
So not bad at all. And I've
right.
done it where I've driven over for the day, or I'm in Rehoboth or coastal
Huh.
Delaware, and I drive back to DC for appointments and then turn around and drive back. So
Ah,
it's doable. Yeah.
a lot of ebooks, a lot of audiobooks maybe would
Yes.
help with that.
Yes.
So what I have been to Rehoboth many times, and that whole
Hmm.
area, Lewes and places like that, and Lewis. It's Lewis, right?
Lewis. Yes.
Lewis, and even further down to Ocean City, I've been down there.
Hmm.
But what an attractive area!
Yeah.
So attractive. And I know that you have a market that goes into that area. You own property there
Hmm.
and you got your license in the state of Delaware. So I'm figuring you've got a plan.
Yes.
And what
Yes.
is your plan?
Um, so first of all, I think I vacationed in Delaware in the early '90s and fell in love
Yeah.
with it. It was something about it that in particular Rehoboth Beach for me is like a magical little Mayberry type town. And we're spoiled. It's a small town, but we are spoiled with amazing restaurants. And
Mhm.
so we get kind of big city restaurants in this very walkable small community that's right on the ocean. And
Mhm.
so I've loved it from the time that I went there in the early '90s. And then I was lucky enough to be able to buy something in the late '90s. And then over, the past years, I have bought and sold and traded and did a little bit of development there.
Mhm.
And so I've just loved it. I've loved that market. I'm very familiar with it. Um, and I was referring a lot of business to
Mhm.
local agents there,
Mhm. Mhm.
which is great. They handled my clients and friends really well. But I also had a lot of colleagues here in DC that kept saying, listen, we know you know this market so well. Why don't you get your license? We'd love to refer business to you.
Mhm.
And then also, I, wanted to be able to help my own friends and clients be able to buy there or sell there if they're
Mhm.
selling. And so late last year, I finally pulled the trigger. I don't know what the block was for me, but I waited. I
Yeah.
waited a long time to do
Yeah.
it. But pulled the trigger and got my license in Delaware late last year. Um, and the plan is, as I get older, to do more business in Delaware and start to slow down my business in
Right.
DC.
Mhm.
And then our plan as a couple is to eventually move there full time.
Right. And then you'll be in the business of referring back to DC. And
Exactly.
then so
Exactly.
let's talk about, you and I have a love affair with the whole kind of aging world.
Yes.
So you have people leaving the district looking for second homes
Hmm.
and leaving the district looking for permanent homes. Is that right?
Correct. Correct.
Yeah, so kind of where is that market these days in terms of your community, your
Yes.
business?
Sure. So whenever I'm talking to someone that's considering buying in coastal Delaware, we have an intake conversation and kind of a deep dive on what they're looking for. And one of the things I want to ascertain pretty quickly is this going to be a second home for them? Is it going to be a retirement home for them? Is it going to be an investment property that they rent out? Or is it a combination of all three?
Mhm.
Because honestly, that's what Rehoboth has been for me. So I
Mhm.
bought a house there that we use as a second home, but we also rent it out in the summer.
Mhm.
And eventually it's going to be my retirement home.
Mhm. Mhm.
And so, but understanding that up front helps me understand their motivations and what may be important to them. And it varies. I mean, I have a lot of clients. I had a recent transaction in Lewis Beach, and it's a younger couple, and they have a family, and they wanted a second home down at the ocean.
Mhm.
And so for them, it was a second home. I have two other clients I'm working with now that will be retirement homes for them.
Yes.
So one is selling a house in DC, the other is selling a house in Silver Spring, Maryland, and
Mhm.
their plan is they will move to the Rehoboth Beach area, coastal Delaware, permanently, full time.
Yes. So we're talking about coastal Delaware, but really, David's experience applies to really any kind of urban area where people are, in a sense, traveling probably more than an hour and a half to get to a destination. Could be a mountain, right? But we're talking
Right,
about coast. David, are people realistic about the difference in lifestyle from being in an urban area, such a vibrant urban area,
right.
to being? Now, it's been a while since I've been to coastal Delaware, but there's a lot of farmland on the way,
Hmm.
there's some chicken houses on the way,
Yes, yes.
so are people
Um,
realistic?
so I think is in my experience, most people that are considering moving there have been,
Yeah.
and perhaps been a lot. And so they are fully aware of what they're getting into,
Mhm.
and they're aware of the differences. And it's interesting. I have a lot of friends and clients here in DC that have the second home there, and they are thinking about moving there full time.
Yes.
And a lot of them have said, well, maybe I'll sell my house in DC or the DC area and I'll buy a condo because they're not quite ready to give up city life.
Mhm.
But we were at dinner the other night and, some really smart friends and colleagues or clients, and they said, we were running the numbers and like, it doesn't necessarily make sense for us to buy a condo in the city because, but even if we paid cash between the condo fees and the taxes, we could go back to the city and stay at a really nice hotel once a month or even twice a month, and it would be
Mhm.
cheaper
Mhm.
than owning something. And so I think people that are considering this move to, a slower area like coastal Delaware are beginning to think through all of these variables and what may make sense for them. And so I just thought that was a brilliant thought, and something we've now started to consider as well for ourselves.
Excellent. So, uh, are there any kind of, red flags that come up to you, for you when people say, "Okay, I'm ready to relocate. I'm ready to go to coastal Delaware." Anything that kinda comes up that says, "Hey, wait a minute now. I want you to think about and I want you to consult with that," that kind of thing? Do red flags come up for you? Healthcare issues, condition of healthcare?
Yeah, so I think healthcare is a very important thing for all of us as we age.
Mhm.
And so certainly we have friends that have moved to Delaware and still come back to DC
For
for their
medicine.
doctors and
Mhm.
dentists and all
Mhm.
of that. And part of that is they have a really good, long-standing
Mhm.
relationship with these
Mhm.
medical practitioners. Um, I think the other is they perhaps have struggled to find providers in coastal Delaware. So it's certainly a need there, and certainly the area, the county, Sussex County, they're doing more and more to attract doctors and medical practitioners
Mhm.
to the area. There's a primary medical hospital system there. There's another one that's from more of the Wilmington, Delaware
Mhm.
area,
Right.
and they are coming down into Sussex County as well. And so it's certainly improving, but that's something that I would say to anybody, no matter where they're thinking of potentially relocating, is, you know, what what healthcare opportunities will there be there for you? Um,
Yes, I remember somebody, a friend in Northern Virginia who had serious, like, liver issues or kidney
mm,
issues, and her husband desperately wanted to move to Mountain, Tennessee,
mm,
and they did it. They actually did it, and
yeah,
she's lucked out. Fortunately, not far away, there was a really wonderful expert they're in Mountain, Tennessee. They're way there,
mm,
but that's really tremendous.
mm,
I don't know. I've never had a second home.
mm,
I think of it sometimes as, that's a lot of work. That's a whole that's a whole lot of work to keep that all going, and I've observed, relatives and things like that who have had
right.
property on the Cape and stuff,
Yeah,
so
it is. It's
it's
funny. I have another good friend, and he used to say, you can have a house at the beach and a condo in the city, or you can have a house in the city and a condo at the beach, but don't have two houses.
oh,
And let me tell you, we
yes.
have two houses, and this weekend we worked on our garden here in DC. And I said, it's a lot to maintain. It's a
Mhm.
lot to keep up and to work on. And so
Yes.
I think there's some truth to that old saying or adage. But going back to like what people should consider if they're thinking about a move, and in particular, maybe a move to more of a different type of destination than what
Mhm.
they're used to. And I have friends and clients that have moved from the DC area to Mexico, to Portugal, to
Oh,
all over.
yes. Mhm.
And I mean, one of the things I've always said, and this is true for coastal Delaware as well, is that you really shouldn't go and visit these places at different times of the year.
Mm.
And so I had some clients move out to Palm Springs, California.
Oh,
During
yes.
the winter, it's gorgeous. In the summer, it's really, really hot.
Yes.
And they had not been there in the summer, and they ended up moving. They
Mhm.
left. It was too much for them.
Mhm.
Coastal Delaware can be really, really slow in the off season.
Yes.
I love that. I love that. It's quieter, it's
Mhm,
easier to get into restaurants and stuff like that. But are you prepared for that? Are you
mhm,
prepared for a much slower season? And so I think that's really important for anyone that's thinking about a move to a different area, is to really understand, and I say the four seasons. What is the weather like there? What are the activities like in those
mhm,
locations?
mhm,
And is that going to work for you?
mhm. Yeah, and I recently interviewed Frank Bernard from, West Coast, Florida. They just moved to the Villages.
Hmm.
His wife is so happy.
Yeah.
It is the perfect community for his wife. For him, he hasn't found his people yet,
Mm-hmm.
and he's looking for his people. He shared that on the podcast as well. So I think that also we have that other factor where there's a couple or where there's more than a couple, there are other influences at play here,
Yeah.
and so I think that that slow season, you're
Hmm.
fairly extroverted, so that you enjoy, a slow season is really it's very powerful. I mean, it's a very
Right.
important thing to know about yourself.
Right.
But I would consider you an extrovert, a big
Yeah.
extrovert, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It
fantastic.
it's
Um,
interesting you mentioned, kind of finding your people or finding your
yes, finding your
tribe.
people.
So yeah, so I have a client here in DC, another former AARP
Oh
employee,
yes. Hmm.
and she's single. She's a little bit older, and I'm going to sell her place in DC, and she's going to move into a continuing care facility in Bethesda, Maryland.
Hmm.
And she was so intentional about it, and I so love this. And she said to me, I'm going to move into one of the brand new buildings because I want, as a single woman, I want to be there with other people that are moving in at the exact same time so we can form friendships and have these bonds.
Hmm.
And her concern was, if she moved into an existing building or facility, you she would be the odd man out, so to speak. And
Hmm.
so
A
I
new
just thought
kid.
that was so
Hmm.
smart of
Hmm.
her
Hmm.
to have that foresight and knowledge to say, no, no, this is what I think is going to work best for me.
Hmm. When we were thinking about moving from Virginia to Massachusetts, a dear friend said, and all my family's up here. So I thought, oh, well, this will just be just like when we visit, right? A
Mm,
couple of times a year, it'll be the same. And she said, be careful because those people have their lives and they've had their lives
mm,
apart from you for decades, right? And so I suggest you take a month and you go up and you see if you fit in their world.
right,
It
right.
it was good advice, by the way. It was a good 2 years before I felt like we were kind of fitting in. These
Yeah,
this is a family, right? And they've had
right.
their lives for all these years, and this stranger from Washington, DC moves up there, so and then in terms of,
Yes,
weather is really important. We used to complain bitterly about weather in Northern Virginia, but mostly
right,
because of transportation into the district, mostly
right,
because,
right.
what is our commute going to be like?
Exactly.
Up here, we complain about when is the snow going to melt?
Right.
We have spring, by the way. You should come up. It's really, really
Love it.
beautiful right here.
Love it.
Yeah. David, tell me about are you seeing kind of the aging of your clientele? I was reading at NAR, National Association of Realtors, 42% of the sales have been boomers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the average age of the first time home buyer
Yes.
is like low 40s now,
42, I read. Yes.
which
Right.
is just, uh, it's amazing to me, and it's sad
It's
because I
sad.
think it's a commentary on what younger folks are dealing with, and I think so many of them feel like they may never be able to buy a home. And for me, home ownership, yeah, it sounds trite, but it is a path to generational wealth.
Hmm.
I mean, buying, investing in yourself,
Hmm.
investing in this structure that you can live in, earlier rather than later, sets you up for a lifetime of appreciation and
Hmm.
paying down the mortgage and having this wonderful asset
Hmm.
that you also live in. And
Hmm.
so, um, that number is shocking to me, and it's a little sad because I work with all types of clients. So I have first time home buyers, I have investors. I have retirees looking
Mhm.
to downsize. I work with a lot of estates where family members passed away, and I'm helping sell the family home.
Mhm.
Um, so again, going back to younger people, I see their struggle, and so much of it is like student debt. Um, and what I'm seeing in DC is that a lot of my younger clients are able to afford because they're getting help from their family.
From their family. Yes.
And so a lot of boomers are helping their kids with the down payment. And shockingly, so many are literally buying properties for their children or grandchildren outright.
Yes.
Yeah,
Because they have the equity, right?
right.
They can leverage that equity now through a number of vehicles, right?
Right, right.
Yeah. I'm
Yeah.
curious about this kind of reverse mortgage to buy. I need to do some research on it.
Mhm.
I'm gonna do some more research. I've
Yes,
been hearing from a lot of lenders, but I wanna hear
yes,
about, consumer organizations as well and what they're
right.
saying about these quote, new reverse mortgages and see what
Right,
the issues are.
right.
How
And
do
then
you
back on, so if I make take a minute and just
Yeah,
talk
oh,
about kind of some of my older clients, I think a lot of what they're considering is, um, perhaps most of them have a lot of equity in their homes. They've lived there a long time. And so where would they move? Where would they
yes.
go? Are they spending as much or more than what they would sell their place for? The whole rate lock effect where people were locked in to 2.5, 3% mortgage
Yes.
rates. I
Mhm.
mean,
Yes, we
that's
are.
hard to give that.
Yes,
Yeah,
that's
same.
right.
It's really hard to give up. I mean,
Yeah.
and so I think those are all things that are, um, people are trying to consider, but also it's affecting the market. It's affecting how many homes are available for sale, who's buying them, all of those things. So,
Are you seeing
um,
accessory dwelling units yet in your area? Um, that and it sounds good. I mean, it sounds we have a lot of land here, grass. We have
yeah,
a lot of grass here.
yeah,
And but I would say the barrier for me is I don't really want to go through the process
yeah,
of putting a property on or putting an addition on. I don't want to go through it, and I don't have the
yeah,
patience for it. So your question is very important. Where do you go?
right, right. Oh, and, on the ADU point, DC is trying to make it easier for people that own property in the city to be able to create an accessory dwelling unit by right.
By
And there are
right.
some architects here and builders that have literally come up with plans that have been approved by the city.
Hmm.
So it's easier to get them implemented.
Mhm.
And here in DC, we see a lot of, perhaps you have a detached garage behind your house. And so they'll do an accessory unit above the garage.
Yes.
Or,
Yes.
here in city, we have a lot of, we call them English basement apartments. So it's the lower level of your house. It's kind of half underground, half above ground.
Mhm.
And so a lot of people are converting those into rental units. We have one in our house that we had a long term tenant in it for many years, and we switched to Airbnb. And so now we have people checking in and out, multiple times a week.
Wow.
And so all of those things, come into play. And then I think for older clients, it could be, rental income. It could help with
Yes.
expenses. It could be a child moving back home after college
Mhm.
that hasn't found a job yet and they want
Mhm.
some independence. It could be a place for a caregiver to stay.
Right.
So if you want to age in place and stay in your home, then maybe your live-in help has some independent living space within your property, within your house or on your property.
Mhm.
And so I think there's lots of really smart uses for something like that.
Yes. So, so there are about 20 states now that have passed ADU laws, very generous ADU laws.
Mhm.
Ours passed 2 years ago, regulations a year ago. Unfortunately, we have town government, and I say unfortunately because that means more factors at play as to what you can and cannot do. The law
Right.
is generous, very generous.
Mhm.
However, the towns are trying to make sure that they fit them. And so I live in a town that's trying to do a lot of restrictions next to a town that is wide open. Yes,
Mm,
yes, please do it. Yes.
right.
So it
Right, right.
varies.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's interesting, taking it back to coastal Delaware and probably any coastal area. Um, there's this whole workforce housing issue, and so
Yes.
like in the city of Rehoboth Beach, I mean, all real estate is so incredibly expensive.
Mm-hmm.
Where do the workers stay? Are
Mm-hmm.
they, 20 miles out down this highway with limited bus service? How do they get into town? And so I think that's something that communities are struggling with. How do you solve for this?
Yes.
And in Rehoboth, there's a great restaurant in town, one of our favorites, and the couple that owns the restaurant bought. It was formerly a little motel. Someone had bought it and renovated it and made it into like little Airbnbs. Well,
Mm-hmm.
they bought it from that developer, and that's where they let their workers stay in the summer.
Awesome.
It's walkable to the restaurant or bikeable.
Yep.
And I just thought, one, that is so incredibly kind,
Mm-hmm.
but also a really smart business
Smart
decision
business.
because
Yes.
you've got happy workers that can easily get to work. They have a place to stay, so they don't need to worry about that.
Mm-hmm.
But that, I mean, that's something that I'm not sure a lot of people think about, but it's important to having
Yes.
a vibrant, successful community.
I think those chambers of commerce and those business associations, they're thinking about that.
Hmm.
Where do they get the employees so they can, one, provide the service and two, possibly expand the service? Years
Right.
ago, kids used to come in from overseas.
Yeah. Yep.
And yes, I remember
J1
that.
visas.
Yes, that's exactly what G1
Yep.
visas. And now I assume that those are very, very difficult. I
Yeah.
would assume. Yeah,
Yeah.
amazing. Okay. Question. How do other real estate professionals, in your opinion, how can they prepare for, these shifts in the market, particularly the older market that has so much equity,
Hmm.
the frustrating for most often for the first-time home buyers. How can real estate professionals prepare for these markets?
Hmm. Um, I mean, I think it sounds so simple. Listen,
Listen.
be open, simply listen. Let that client or friend just talk to you. What are they considering? What are they struggling with? Be open to that. And then I think you don't have to solve for it immediately, but you have to listen to understand what the needs are.
Mhm.
And then you go back and try to figure out how to solve for that.
Oh my
So
goodness.
I think that's huge. I think in a more tactical way, there are various designations that you can get. So there's the SRES, the Seniors Real Estate Specialist designation, that helps you think through these things. The National Association of Home Builders has a CAPS, a certified agent in place specialist, that I did many years ago. And that's really about helping someone think about staying in their home. So I always tell my clients, reach out to me anything real estate or home related, because I'm not here just to help you sell or buy a house.
Mhm.
I'm here to help your life in that house be better and
Mhm.
serve you better. And
Mhm.
so that may be referring them to a contractor or a landscape person, but it also may be helping them think about what modifications they can make to their home that would allow them to stay there longer.
Excellent. You are terrific, you know that? I often say that when I became an agent, um, the, NAR I was so nervous, I didn't know anything, I only knew you know what I knew. I knew nothing about
Right.
marketing or running a business. I had been employed at our employer for so long, and
Yeah.
NAR did a survey.
Hmm.
What do people want from their real estate professional? One, they want to be able to trust them.
Hmm.
How do you trust? When you listen and you actively listen, right?
Right.
Listen. Trust, responsiveness, answer the call, answer the
Hmm.
text, send the document, whatever. And the third one was expertise.
Mm.
So I figure I mean, I can work on the trust and the responsiveness easily, right? I can
Right.
do that and get better
Right.
and better at it. And then over time, the expertise will come.
Yeah.
And because we're connectors, we're natural connectors, we find the answers. Um, David,
Yeah.
is awesome talking to you.
Well, thank you.
It is a treat to see you, and I look forward to staying connected with you. And if I ever get down to
Absolutely.
Rehoboth, I'm going to stop by that beautiful home you've
Oh,
put
I'd love it.
together.
I'd love it. Can I tell a quick story?
So
So
do.
speaking of the expertise part
Yeah.
of the three,
Uh-huh.
when I first started out selling real estate, I was so worried that like it would be so obvious I didn't know what I was
Mhm.
doing, and I was so fearful of the question from a client. Well, how long have you been doing this? And so a mentor at the time said, "Oh, that's easy. You just say, man, some days it feels like forever." And I did it. I said it 2 or 3 times because a lot of it was simply small talk. Like the client was just trying to engage in small talk. And so when I said that, they just laughed and dropped it. So I didn't need to tell them I'd only been selling for a month.
They didn't need to see your vitae or
Right.
anything. Yes. And one other thing I want to point out about David, he is a very active member of
Mm,
various communities in Washington, D.C., and I'm sure in Delaware as well.
mhm,
And so that in itself is just a gold mine in the sense of getting to know people, trusting him, being willing to say,
mm,
"You've got to talk to David. I know you're thinking about replacing that roof and putting slate on it, but you got to talk
mhm.
to David," whatever. So
Right.
so David, congratulations. Congratulations on 14 years, almost 14 years. Congratulations on a life plan that you have. And I thank you so much for your time today.
Well, thank you, Mary. It's always a joy to talk to you, and I'm so appreciative of you inviting me to be on this
Definitely.
platform, and to talk. So
Oh,
thank
do
you.
yes, do share it with friends and family, and we like those likes and we like those subscribes for sure.
Definitely. I
Thanks,
definitely will.
David. Thank you so much for joining us today, and I hope you found this conversation useful to you and your real estate goals. You'll find the contact information for our guests and any links they recommend you have in the show notes. And should we be able to help you identify some strong real estate professionals in your area, drop us a note at info@realestateconnectionspodcast.com. Thanks again, and bye for now.